Earnings season for the first quarter of 2022 started. Airlines were the first companies to disclose earnings. And then we have the banks that are going to follow and a bunch of other companies. And then we'll have AMC. I'm not sure exactly if the date has been set up yet for the release date of this first quarter of 2022 earnings. But we have some indications, when it comes to the box office numbers that can actually point us towards guessing what those earnings could look like. We already knew, all right, going into 2022 as the end of 2021, that earnings for this year were supposed to be way better than what we had, this same time last year, or just what we had coming from the company in the last quarter of 2022. Why? Because there were a list of big bangers movies coming out. And I want to share with you in this video something that will actually it's confirming the theory that, earnings for AMC coming in a couple of weeks might definitely be very, very, very interesting, and why you should pay attention to that, all right? And I'm talking about Sonic the Underdog 2. Sourced to with $71 million debut. And this is, from Box Office Mojo, and it was posted on April 10. So a week ago. Now we may be headed towards $100 million box office revenues on just Sonic the Underdog 2. Why is this important? Well, because, fellas, AMC is a stock. AMC is a company who actually makes money, and based on where we are coming from in 2020, we have a lot more people going to movie theaters. And the numbers I'm just showing you are just here to confirm that. I mean, have you looked at Spider-Man? Have you looked at the numbers around all the movies that came after Spider-Man? The deal is, for you, it may sound like, well, it doesn't matter. Well, it does, because as an investor, you want to pay attention to what makes revenue. Because what makes revenue, the more money the company makes, the better the opportunities for that company to actually be more profitable, or less in debt, or actually have the ability to pay back or to reinstate a dividend program. And that dividend program, or even a buyback share, because we've seen this with many companies that were in the exact same spot with AMC in 2020. All right. So the more money, because AMC since then has now done a lot more to increase the amount of revenue source, from the business. So if we're talking about the movie theaters alone, not even counting the other avenues, not even counting the investment they made lately, this gives me the indication that the earnings that we're going to have in a couple of weeks for the first quarter of 2022 is going to be a banger. And because it's going to be a banger, it may attract some more investors on top of whoever from the retail or the institutional side we already have here on AMC. But we might be heading towards a very surprise thing. Because if we hear these two things, more debt getting paid off, or they're saving actually that money to make sure they can be eligible to a buyback program. A buyback program is definitely the company deciding to buy back the share itself. They have to have the authority. They have to disclose that to the SEC. But if they have the money to do that, well, this can also be something that will be the nail to the coffin of the short sellers, all right? Because you can't just buy back synthetic shares. It will create such an amazing buying pressure, because it's coming from the company itself, that it will literally send this to the moon, like literally. And then we have the dividend thing. All right, because we know, as GameStop already announced, have you seen what the GameStop did as soon as they announced that a dividend was being reinstated? Just think about AMC stock, because any dividend will have to be paid on the real shares. But the real shares, we all know, are not, the amount of shares floating in the market now are not only real shares. We have a lot more fake shares than the real shares, just because of the short selling tactics and practices. So as soon as you hear about that, man, it's gonna be such an amazing catalyst for the stock, because everybody will like to recall that stock, and then the short seller will just have to buy back those shares, and that's how the squeeze will happen. So all of this, of course, is pure speculation from me, but by looking at the numbers, I wouldn't be surprised if we head that direction. Is it likely? Well, you don't know. I will say 50-50, just because no one can predict the future. And with AMC stock, anything that makes sense or that is logical with any other type of stock will not make sense with it, just because of all the things happening behind the scenes here. But let's just see how it folds, how time will tell. But an additional reason just to hold on a little bit longer to your shares before you can actually get to sell at the price you want.